Hello, everyone. Today I have the pleasure of talking with Kelsey Stuart, who's the CEO of Bloomin Blinds, which is one of my franchises and one of my favorite ones because I've also visited their facility and I know what they do. I know how they help franchisees. I know they're outside Dallas, but I never heard of the city, the Colony, which has been around a long time, and I thought that was a unique name. And I was really fortunate that they had myself and other, people in my company out there, and they showed us their business and how they train franchisees and what they do in window coverings and also outside coverings and many different accessories in that business. It's much more. And I have other franchises too that use the blind word, and I never understand why they use the blind word because there's so much more to window coverings, right? And that's what Kelsey's going to tell us about. Kelsey, you don't need to hear from me. You're the expert in this, and I was impressed with your company. Tell me about that great story about your mother and how she started the company, and you're so humble to tell us your mother started the company.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, first off, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it very much. So Bloomin Blinds is actually the second iteration of our family business. I'm 47, almost 48 now. But when I was in high school, Mom got an itch. She's a serial entrepreneur, and saw an opportunity to start a blind cleaning company. So off she went. She bought a blind cleaning tank and thought she'd solve the world's problems cleaning, one blind at a time. And so, I grew up in high school with our garage full of blinds hanging from racks to be cleaned or drying, if you will. And it was interesting during that process as she's advertising for blind cleaning, she got a ton of calls for repairs. Blinds that weren't working properly, they'd worn out, strings had failed, various components that make them, tilt open and closed. And it kind of pushed her into an environment where she started to learn how to put these things back together after they wore out. Even if she didn't sell them, just kind of learning the generic repair process and what that takes.
Right.
She ran that as a one-woman show for about 7 years, and after divorce, decided that she wanted out of town, and so she sold that business and then decided to skip town and move down to Dallas, which is where we're at now.
Okay.
Originally, she came to Dallas with the intent of redoing it all over again, but still as a one-woman show. Within a couple months, she got into a position where she couldn't go out and do appointments. And my middle brother was living with her at the time. And because we had migrated down, if mom's moving, the boys tend to move and follow. And so Chris became the first employee. She basically grabbed him and said, "Hey, I need your help. Out, go get him, Tiger." And so over the course of time, we slowly just began to grow into a pretty good sized window treatment company. At the point in which we let go of it as a franchise unit, it was a $3 million a year operation.
Wow.
Yeah. And to your point earlier about the word blinds, it is kind of the generic term, but not only Bloomin Blinds, but most window covering companies are kind of a full spectrum company, a full catalog company. We offer drapes, we offer exterior shades. We just launched an awning program. So anything that is used to cover up or shade or insulate a window, either for a functional purpose or a decorative purpose, that's kind of well within our scope of services.
What did your, let me just ask one quick question. Back to the history, what did your mother do? How do you clean a blind? She actually took it off and brought it to your house and did it in the garage or something, or she did it in their house, which would be a mess, right?
Well, so to clean a blind, you're using a large ultrasonic blind cleaning tank. It's a 6 or 8 foot wide stainless steel tank.
Okay.
You've got a wash side and then a rinse side. Okay. And ultrasonic is basically sound waves moving through the water, and then it creates cavitation bubbles. Okay. And when those bubbles pop off the surface, they pull the dust, the grease, the grime.
Oh, okay.
And so it's a giant jewelry cleaner.
Okay.
And so you get the blinds in there, you scrub them a little bit, you rinse them, but then you got to let them dry.
Well, where was this? She had this in the garage or outside the house?
Well, in the garage was the original concept, and that is
Wow.
not an efficient way to do it. So after a couple of years of transporting to and from houses and back to our garage, she learned how to mount the tank inside of a small U-Haul truck.
Oh, okay.
And so then it became a mobile service. And you're still doing the cleaning out in the truck, but now you're not wasting the time of driving back and forth between the customer and your home base.
No, I always ask these, being an engineer by degree and practice, I sometimes always ask a lot of questions. So I'm sorry, but so she knew how. I guess all blinds must have just a little flip up piece of metal and they come right off, or sometimes she had to get a screwdriver and take these things out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, every window covering product is held in place by a set of brackets.
Okay,
And the
okay,
brackets are screwed to the wall, screwed to the studs behind the sheetrock. Those
right,
stay in place, but they all have various ways of letting go of the product.
okay, okay.
And so once you learn how to identify how it comes out of the bracket, the blind comes out, but the bracket stays.
Now you can tell me a whole cadre of things of how you're different than the other competitors in, let's say, in the franchise space. But I love your concept of repairing and how your mother got involved in that and all the brothers got involved. By the way, we didn't tell them that there's three brothers running this company.
Yeah.
You can go to that too and also tell us how you're different than some of their franchise competitors.
Well, I think the brother thing is part of our differentiation as well. Mom started the company, and she was the figurehead for a good solid 10 years. And then we started to get computers,
Right,
and she started to slowly step back.
right,
She, previous to that, she was running everything on paper. And
right.
and as it got more sophisticated, she got a little bit further back. And so
Okay,
now she's retired.
right,
She's gallivanting across the country or, on some epic journey.
right.
She's got the freedom of a founder and she gets to go do
Right.
what she wants. And the boys and I, we're still here and we love what we do. And so we're running the company kind of as a triad. It's worked out really well for us. And sometimes we get questions about those sibling rivalries and the epic battles that brothers are bound to go through. And because we've been working together for almost 20 years, a lot of that stuff is, 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Okay,
So we
okay.
work our way through those squabbles. Um, the repair side of our business within the window covering industry, absolutely a differentiator. We are alone in the willingness to go to somebody's house equipped with parts and skills and knowledge on how to put these things back together, especially in the fact that we didn't sell them in the first place.
Right, right.
We can fix our own stuff well enough, but what makes it special and unique is that our franchise owners travel around with parts, and window coverings are fairly generic. And so you can keep a collection of parts that can put them back together regardless of what the sticker is on the product itself.
Okay, okay. So, take us through, first of all, you can tell us, all three brothers, or you might have other board members decided one day, we're gonna grow this someday, have a large business and maybe sell out also, like, down the road. But you said that somehow you decided, let's franchise this, okay? Because I teach a franchising course. I've been in franchising since 1996, and I know that the concept of franchise, if anybody listens the first time, is that you can expand rapidly across the country with other people's money. That's the basics of franchising. So tell us, like, how many franchisees you have now, what's your goal for this year, and how do you train them? You got so many hours of training on site. I mean, that's what really differentiates you also.
Yeah. Well, the original decision on how to grow was more of my driver. I was the one who had the higher aspirations.
Okay.
I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. I've always seen my parents have a business. I've never seen them have a 9-to-5 job in my entire life. And in their business, they're always metaphorically or physically the ones at the cash register.
Okay.
And while it served us well, I did not grow up without. From a material standpoint, what I did go without was the freedom of time from my parents to literally do what they want or come to soccer games or take off time in the middle of the day. They were owner operators. And so as we began to grow as into a relatively large business, it was still very much owner operator. Of the 10 people in the company, 4 of them were family.
Okay.
And so we were very much still trapped at the center of the wheel of our business.
Okay.
And wanting more for myself, didn't hurt that I have my wife in my ear, encouraging me to not be in that. I knew that I wanted to not be in that position forever. And so it was like, hey, you got to grow this. And at the time, the only 2 paths that I understood were either splitting up the family, sending one brother to Oklahoma City and one brother to Kansas City and one brother to Houston,
Sure.
And taking on company stores, or franchising it, and to simplify the point, using other people's money to grow and expand. And there's pros and cons to both choices.
Sure.
Franchising felt right for us. We really enjoy working as a family unit, and that's always worked well for us. And frankly, at the time, we didn't have the skill set or the capital to go out and build these company stores.
Okay.
So franchising seemed to be the path of least resistance and the one that kind of left us together as a family unit. And without really understanding what franchising meant or the responsibilities or the legalities behind it,
Sure.
we just jumped headstrong right into franchising, and in true grinder fashion, just started kind of muscling our way through the learning curve to get to a point where nine years later, I've got 80 franchise owners and 160 territories.
Wow.
And and some really significant evolutionary growth curves ahead of us.
Nice.
It's taken a while to get good at what we're doing. We didn't really understand franchising when we did it, but I couldn't be happier about the choice, even if we didn't know what we were doing at the time.
So if you have 80 now, how quickly do you think, what's your goal for like a year from now? Will you have 100, 120, more than that?
Yeah, we're halfway through the year and we've added 18 franchise owners. So I would expect, another similar second half perhaps. So,
okay.
Somewhere in the ballpark of 20 to 40 franchise owners a year. 40 feels ambitious. We've never really had that.
Sure.
But we've got a lot of momentum going right now. So in the past, we've averaged 20 to 30 owners, and that's a really healthy growth rate for our system.
Okay.
Responsible workload. We're not one of those viral companies that suddenly explodes 100 owners a year. I'm kind of afraid for those companies.
Well, you're working with a lot of brokerage networks and an FSO for people who are new to that franchise service organization. You might grow more rapidly. So,
it's possible.
I know. Let me ask you about, because I was again fortunate to go to one of your discovery days and find out more about your company, the way you train. I think you want to slow it down a little too, because you want the franchisees to have a lot of time in training. And don't you go a ride along too for the first week, or visit their site or something like that?
Well, the ride along, my heart wants to do that, but it's not a scalable model.
Okay, sure.
Especially if you're going to start accelerating the number of franchise owners that come on board. Now there is still a lot of training and a lot of support. We have the fortune that my brothers and I were literally in the field for 18 years before we franchised.
Okay.
So like I personally have stood in tens of thousands of living rooms helping people pick out product and telling them why we're the right place.
Wow.
So there's a lot of personal context from the leadership team, and that we've now filtered down into our training team and the support and ops teams. A lot of real world knowledge that goes into the training. And the training's 2 weeks in Dallas, and it's hands-on. It's more of a laboratory than it is a seminar.
Sure.
And it's primarily based on the job. We've learned that there's enough to learn for a new franchise owner in this new trade, this new industry, that when we launch a location, we're focused on like, let's get you back home. Let's get some invoices turned over. Let's get you some good positive repetition. And then as you develop and grow, we'll teach you how to run the business.
Okay.
But we're not focusing on the business so much in the beginning training as we are on the job.
Okay. I just like how your brother Kevin was showing us like the simple parts that are in a blind and putting them on the table and having us do that so we get that kinesthetic type learning.
Yep.
And I'm sure that's what you do with all your franchisees, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a doer's business. And so it only seems responsible to train it as a doer training.
Okay, okay. So, um, yeah, let's talk about on the investment. I mean, the trucks are always the most expensive part of that because you can work out of your house, I guess, with a warehouse, but maybe you help them lease trucks or you bring in partners that do that financing or it doesn't have to be in a building. Just tell us, how do you start and how do you try to keep costs low for the franchisee?
You bet. Um, General rule of thumb, with about $100,000, this business can get up and get going.
Okay, okay,
Okay. Um, the only thing that's not included in that would be the vehicle. So
okay,
100,000 in cash,
right,
whether
right,
you have it in a piggy bank or you go get it from someone else.
right, okay,
The vehicle should be financed,
okay,
and that could be traditional financing or leasing. That really doesn't matter one way or the other. Um, we were often run as a home-based business. The only time that that's not the election is if there's an HOA that gets in the way, or if you're in a condo and you don't have a garage. There are sometimes logistical issues like that. And if so, then you go get a storage unit or you go get a small warehouse.
I like how you built your office. You started with kind of those garage office things and built it from there, right?
Right. Well, and that's the intent is how you start shouldn't be how you finish. We just
Right.
got to get you in motion. We got to keep it nimble. We got to keep the costs low. And really, we don't need to get fancy because we are an industry and a business that brings it to the customer.
Okay.
So where we conduct our business, where our home base doesn't have to be fancy because customers aren't designed, we're not designed for customers to come to us. So no
Okay.
showroom, no real estate, no build out, no brick and mortar. Customers call and we bring everything to them.
So let's talk about, I think you even said that they can get a, but just wrap it right with the
Right.
Bloomin Blinds stuff. And then, okay, good. Now, do you outfit inside that? Because you must have some of your equipment that you tell them that they have to buy or get the right stuff, right, to do the
Yeah.
job.
Well, so we do, well, the most complicated equipment that we use is a ladder and a cordless drill.
Okay.
Equipment standpoint, it's more of that kind of stuff,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Um, but we do kit out everything for a franchise owner. So in that initial $100,000, there's money there to go get the tools, to go get the repair parts, to get the
Okay.
samples from manufacturers, and all of that is provided and chosen and pre-built as a package for the franchise owners, so they don't have, that's one less thing off their plate. We can take care of all of those. There's a couple hundred SKUs of things that have to be acquired.
Oh, okay.
And,
Okay.
and one of those SKUs would be like a needle nose pliers, and one of them would be, a sample book from a factory about plantation shutters. But we've got all of that down to basically a science.
Yeah, talk about that. That was one of my questions too, the product line. How do you do that on the drapery side and probably more complicated than the blind side, the wooden shutter side? I mean, the high-end items, how do you do that? Uh,
Yeah, one of the nice things about this industry is the learning curve is pretty quick. So whether we're talking about a shutter, a blind, drapery, awnings, the concept of how to articulate what it does or doesn't do to a customer, how to measure for it, and how to install it. Those are some basic fundamentals that don't really move a lot dependent on the product. They're constants,
okay,
which is
okay,
great because as you get good at those constants, then all you have to focus on is the nuance, the little details.
okay,
But there's a lot of consistency regardless of what the product looks like.
okay, okay,
Now the higher end products, um, that's where confidence and the ability to present yourself as the right choice, the showmanship,
right.
that's where it's ever increasingly important on the higher end. The higher the ticket, the more the buyer wants to know that they're picking the right person, but not necessarily the cheapest person, the right person.
Yeah, so how do they do that? Because, I can I can go measure for a blind, and you got laser measurements and all that, and it's like dead on, and then it gets sorted. But I don't have any design experience in my head to pick out the right drapery for the room, and also, how do you train them on that? Do they hire a design person?
No, I think it's more about the approach in which we handle it. Because honestly, Frank, probably 85% of our franchise owners are men.
Okay, okay,
Um, and I think that's because of the repair and install component.
sure,
Like
okay,
they're not farming that out. They're not handing that to a contractor. We're doing
right,
our work.
right,
Um, we tend to handle wind coverings with a kind of a utilitarian viewpoint. Like, what do you want it to do? And then how does that product either serve or fail your goal?
okay,
We spend our time talking about the functionality far more than we do about the design. The color,
okay,
the color is actually the last thing that gets picked.
okay,
And the nice thing is that once you start filtering through your different product options based on functionality, then it kind of helps filter everything down to, say, maybe one supplier that has all those answers right. And then it's really, people are kind of predictable. Like most of our colors are either white, some form of white, gray, or beige.
okay,
So it's
okay,
like which shade of beige matches with your walls,
right,
or that you like the best. So the design element is a lot easier on the approach that we have because we've already pre-filtered so many of the variables out of the way
okay,
that once you get down to the actual color selection, we're working with a very limited set of choices because the
okay.
functionality matters more than the color in nearly every case.
Okay, what would you like to add? I asked you a lot of questions, and I don't have to drill you anymore. It's amazing how much you've answered. Oh, I want you to, what I was most impressed with, because, I know what drapes look like, wood shutters, and, blinds and so forth. What you doing outside now, where you had the pergolas and you had the sunscreens that go up and down motorized, and now you
Right.
say things. Maybe you can talk about that area that makes you a little different right now.
Yeah, the two fastest growing areas in window coverings are motorization.
Right,
So the ability to use a motor to open and close or lift and lower things. And that's been popular for a while. But the outdoor space.
right.
Uh, this was already in existence pre-COVID, but that COVID era pushed everyone outside.
Okay.
And by outside, I mean the backyard.
Right, right.
Um, and so that entire environment has just exploded with opportunity, not only in buyer interest, but then products available in the R&D and the complexities. Complexity is not the right word. Availability and options.
Okay, okay.
And so we really dove headlong into that. Uh, if you have a patio or a pergola, or you have any sort of structure where evening sun is just
Right.
just cooking you, you can't
Sure.
the patio because that western sun is just blinding you.
Right.
We have shades that can take that glare off the sun. You still get all the light, you still get a nice sunset,
Right.
but it just takes that wincing shine off of it.
Sure. Sure.
If you have a patio that we can enclose fully and you have a problem with mosquitoes, we can drop these shades, and they have channels or side tracks that kind of enclose the edges, and now scorpions or mosquitoes can't get in,
Wow. Wow,
which
that's
is
impressive.
it's fantastic. My backyard has tons of mosquitoes, and I have 7 shades on the back, and I can go out there any time of year and not worry about getting alive.
Wow.
And we just launched, just this week, we launched awnings. So households that weren't built with a deck or a patio,
Right.
now we can give them cover from the rain or the sun. We can give them the outdoor environment without having to build a second addition on the house, basically.
And those are either cranked or motorized. You got options on all that too, right?
Yeah, then the rechargeable batteries have come a long way. So now even if you want to motorize, you don't necessarily have to go get an electrician.
Oh,
We can
okay.
simply just put a motor on it that's rechargeable. It'll
Wow.
go down about 400 times before it needs a 12-hour charge.
Wow. Wow.
So there's the technology that's in the window covering space has really blossomed in the last 5 years. It's
Okay.
it's really gotten into a smart environment.
Okay.
And that's been great. Like you can now talk to your shades just like you would in Alexa. You can tell it to go up and down. You can set
Wow.
timers. You can even set them that if the window gets too hot, it'll drop the shades to help proactively control the temperature in the house.
Wow, that is wonderful. I mean, and that utility difference will almost pay for that in the long run, you know. So
Yeah, at some point, we've never measured it, but I think
yeah,
you're onto something
yeah.
there.
Wow. By the way, I just wanted to say that I'm not here to promote myself, but you. But if you wondered why I always have a sumo wrestler in the back, I lived in Japan for 4 years, so I used to go watch sumo all the time. So, uh,
Nice. I
uh,
did notice him.
so it's the oldest sport on earth. It started in 1200, and they used to entertain the shoguns. But
Wow.
it's an interesting history of it. To Americans, it looks like two fat boys just pushing each other out. So, um, so okay. And now, what would you like to add? Because I have enough questions. If you want to add just something left, or talk
Yeah,
about.
my heart, I guess, for Bloomin', the one piece that sometimes I feel like we don't have an opportunity to articulate enough is that while I will be teaching a franchise owner about window coverings, what we get really excited about and where we really put our emphasis is teaching people how to run a successful business.
Okay.
It's
Very good.
not the window coverings is a widget.
Right.
It's just a thing we do, but understanding how to create money out of thin air, how to provide for yourself and not be dependent on somebody else, how to think critically and creatively at the same time. Uh,
Okay.
the skill set of running a business is what we truly hang our hat on. The window
Okay.
coverings we're good at, but I love teaching people about business.
Well, that's nice. Can I guess there was no more questions, but I might have not told the truth. I just, because it was something you just said, most important to the franchisee, yeah, how do you help them market?
Well, that's in flux right now. Part of our differentiation is we are currently rebuilding our entire system, tech stack, like all the processes we use. And we're now building it with machine learning and AI infrastructure.
Wow.
And so, like, we're in the middle of that build right now, and we'll be done in 41 days. And when we're done with that, now I have our own AI that we own. We're not renting, it's not a subscription. And that AI is now, well, currently have fed it all of our history, all the transactions, all the marketing wins, all the ads that worked and didn't work. All
Wow.
of that historical data is now being fed in there as training data so that it's already starting off with a knowledge of everything that's ever worked. And then as we continue to conduct more business, we're feeding it more and more data about what's winning and what's losing. And that's going to control our pay-per-click marketing. That's going to control our SEO. That's going to control a very interactive website.
Wow.
And so from a digital standpoint, we've always automated the digital stuff for franchise owners, but now we are fueling it and empowering it with all of our historical data and current real-time analytical data to make better and better decisions.
How does a company owner do that? I mean, there's AI consultants now and AI companies. I mean, we hear the big buzzword AI, but
Yeah,
besides ChatGPT, I don't know where to go, but there's like a,
yeah. So AI is powered by a database or a pool of information. It's called a
right,
data. Okay.
right,
So when you go to ChatGPT, the data lake is the World Wide Web.
right.
When you ask it a question, it has to go look for your question, but it's also filtering through pictures of clowns and recipes for chicken pot pie.
Sure, sure. Right.
Right. So it's kind of a murky lake. It typically gets you answers, but sometimes it's a little screwy because it's
Okay.
reading through a lot of generic information. Um, if you're going to own your own AI,
Okay.
you're building your own data lake, one that doesn't have recipes for chicken pot pies.
Okay. Okay.
So we found a company that understands how to build, not rent, but build AI.
Okay.
So they're taking all of our data, they're creating our own data lake, and then as we conduct business, when we ask our AI to go help or improve marketing or any technical questions of the products, it's only drawing information from our lake, from our experience,
It's
from our
wonderful.
history, both today and yesterday. And so the purity of the information that's coming back and the rate in which it can grow and learn from all of this continual feeding of data, it's accelerated extraordinarily quick. It's like it's like ChatGPT's data lake is a muddy bog, and our data lake has been filled up with bottled water.
Wow.
The clarity in which it
Like that.
moves,
Yeah.
because it only has one uh, direction of input. It only knows Bloomin Blinds customers, activities, transactions.
Sure. Okay. Okay. That's great. So now have you added all the last points? Because you just gave us a lot. You just taught me something. I love that. It's worth it, you know?
Yeah. The other thing I really like to add in terms of franchising conversations is that owners who are exploring franchising, I think it's really important that they have a gut check. Not just should I be in business, but should I be in a franchise business? Because that's a subset of being in business.
Right.
And the perfect fit for someone in a franchise organization as a franchise owner is someone who sees systems and processes as pillars of strength, the opportunity to stand on the shoulders of giants. Those that struggle in a franchise system want total enablement. They want somebody to do everything for them,
Right.
or they're so entrepreneurial that they see systems and processes as a limiter of personal freedom.
Right.
And I think it's really important for anyone looking at franchising as a business model to really get a good understanding and evaluate themselves to say, you know, can I use these and appreciate them and trust them natively? Or am I going to be somebody who pushes up against them?
Right.
And that's a piece that we don't always get to talk about. And I love to bring that up for
Sure.
anyone who may be listening and watching, is the importance of that gut check and the realization of what a franchise business model is.
That's true. It's yeah, and like I said, I teach a course at San Diego State in franchising, and I always tell everybody about that, saying, yeah, if you think you're going to play golf 7 days a week, your franchise is going to fail, right? You got to use their systems, and you got to work too. But now you got systems, and so and it helps. Well, Kelsey, it's been wonderful. If anybody wants some extra information, just so I haven't advertised, you can go to my website, FranchiseFrank.com, and you can get set up my calendar and have a quick introductory call. I can help you with Bloomin Blinds. So if Kelsey, you were wonderful. It was great to meet all your brothers. I guess I never understood why all your brothers, your first names start with a K. I'm sure that's another long family story.
The parents are Kent and Karen.
Ken and Karen. Okay. So thank you very much. Everybody have a great week and a great rest of the day. And it was really impressive. Thank you, Kelsey.
Thanks, Brian.